This song will make you cry. Quack. This song will probably make you cry. Quack. This song will make you cry. Probably. Quack.
But I am still upset that they did not make the bad guys Russia, specifically because it was found out later on that the coach, the Wolf the Dentist character, had he been Russian,
Benson, yeah.
he could have been played by Tim Curry.
I'm sorry, what?
It's Knuckle Puck time! What the heck kind of a shot was that? You've never heard of a Knuckle Puck? Whoa! Quack! Quack! It's Knuckle Puck time!
And welcome everyone to Knuckle Puck Time. My name is Andrew Apple.
I remain David Hankler.
And I'm Harkwinski.
This week, we're talking about D2, the Mighty Ducks, in anticipation of the new Disney Plus series, Mighty Ducks Game Changers. For those of you who have never seen the movie before, first off, please let us know in the comments below how you got here, but we're very happy you're here. And second, here's a refresher. After successfully making it onto Minnesota's minor league hockey team and unfortunately ending his career shortly thereafter due to injury, Gordon Bombay returns home to figure out what he's going to do next with his life. At the urging of Hans's brother, Jan, the largest sponsor for the Junior Goodwill Games, decides to make Bombay their new spokesman and see to it that he's hired to lead the USA's Junior Goodwill Games hockey team. Through a series of highs, lows, hijinks, and self-examination, the USA hockey team gets a few new players, a good dose of quacking, and ultimately a win over the heavily favored Iceland team to bring the championship home. Mark, what stood out most to you in this sequel?
Well, first of all, Andrew, that recap was stupendous. That was top-notch recapping. So if people haven't seen this movie yet, like, that was it. It was great. So many great things stood out to me. I still love, just like D1, this movie holds up. Like, this holds up, 25 years later? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unbelievable how the memories of my childhood came flooding back, and also, like, deep-rooted plot lines. I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
I part of why I love this movie so much is the first one is ostensibly about hockey. It's about everything we talked about before: fathers, sons, class dynamics. You know, those are the threads. But it does still try to be about hockey. This one takes hockey in the thinnest of actual views, to the point where they basically stop having rules. And I love that. I absolutely love this movie. Understands that most of the people watching it don't actually know anything about hockey. Which also is great for us, because unlike Andrew, as we mentioned last episode, neither Mark nor I knows anything real about hockey.
But now we know that much more because of episode 1. Like, look at us growing and learning, just like...
We are learning certain things, like it's illegal to clothesline someone. It makes sense, but I did have to check that rule.
Speaking of that, though, like, let's just get into it. Like, why was the Iceland team just able to do this? Like, why were they so angry? And it looked like trying to just take out every player. I know it's part of hockey to, like, check and hit and all that stuff, but, like, I feel a lot of that stuff was against hockey rules, as you said.
Andrew, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I do. The thing we need to remember is that the reason that Iceland are the bad guys, from the best that I can find, is literally only because the word ice is in their name. The bad guys were originally supposed to be Russia, to sort of mimic what happened in 1980 with the Miracle on Ice. Russia has a very aggressive hockey style.
My understanding had been that this establishment had been kind of for two reasons. One, the Rodney King riots happened between Mighty Ducks 1 and Mighty Ducks 2. So America was very aware of race, and in hockey, most everyone is white. So setting D2 in Los Angeles, they very much wanted to go, okay, who can we cast? Like, who can the enemy be who is going to be entirely white so we can show that America is multiracial? And also the fact that they also address, as we've talked before, about class issues by bringing in the urban team, the inner city team in D2, led by Russ Tyler and his podcast name, Knuckle Puck. That was part of showing that America was a united group against solidarity, which could be represented entirely by just a whole bunch of old white guys who all look like they were in their 20s, by the way.
Yeah. Wow. I'm learning that right now. I am today years old when I came to that reality, and it makes perfect sense.
Also, I know that I just blanked on his name. Ted
Bundy.
No,
Turner.
Famous, incredibly rich Ted Turner. There we go. Thank you.
Ted.
I cannot believe I forgot that. Ted Turner is the founder of the Goodwill Games, and Ted Turner was expanding his media empire at the time, and the U.S. and Russia had really good relations at the time, probably the best that we've had since World War II. And that was the time where Russia was basically allowing forms of capitalism, forms of outside news, and other such very American things to actually come into the country and their affiliates. So there was no way that in a Goodwill Games style situation, Ted Turner was going to allow Russia to be embarrassed. And therefore, I imagine the screenwriters, and I do not have this confirmed, but I imagine, were not also going to put the same situation in line. I doubt they could have gotten the rights to the Goodwill Games name if they were putting something at risk that might embarrass Ted Turner's new potential business partners.
You are actually 100% correct on that. It was because everything was starting to mellow out between the U.S. and Russia. But I am still upset that they did not make the bad guys Russia, specifically because it was found out later on that the coach, the Wolf the Dentist character, had he been Russian, he could have been played by Tim Curry.
I'm sorry, what? That was supposed to be Tim Curry playing an angry Russian hockey player?
So here's what happened, okay? We have talked about offline.
I'm gonna go too, because that I'm
now immediately upset and like this movie at least 5% less.
Bye, Andrew. Enjoy.
So offline, we have talked about the absolute bananas TV series that was the animated Mighty Ducks series, which is on Disney Plus right now as well. And I highly recommend everyone watch the first episode because, oh my God, it is so crazy. It may be the greatest animated series.
Even for the magic absurdity of early 90s animated shows where we had such shows as Gargoyles, where people in a city were just totally fine with the fact that giant, effectively demons, fought crime and maybe killed people. It was never really confirmed. Somehow Mighty Ducks is crazier than anything else you can find. Ren and Stimpy seems reasonable next to some of the Mighty Ducks themes.
Some of it. Andrew, could you read that recap, I guess, too?
What, you want a synopsis of what happened in the Mighty Ducks animated series?
Yeah. Because
I'll give you the quick IMDb breakdown. A team of humanoid duck ice hockey team / freedom fighters fight evil between games. Starring Brad Garrett.
And
the world is magical.
And Tim Curry is one of the voices in there.
He's Lord Dragonia?
Yes.
And Dennis Franz? Oh, I watched this recently and I didn't catch this.
So this is what happened. They called up Tim Curry to say, hey, we want you to be one of the voices in the Mighty Ducks animated series. And when it got distilled down to him, his agent basically said, we got a call from the people who are producing the Mighty Ducks. They want you in the Mighty Ducks. And he got all excited because he thought he was being offered a role in the D2, the Mighty Ducks.
Of course.
And instead, it was this. So how they couldn't just take a moment and step back and say, all right, would the awesomeness of having Tim Curry being an angry Russian hockey coach be enough to offset the potential geopolitical ramifications of making Russia the bad guys in a movie? And I would wholeheartedly say, in my completely apolitical life, yes.
See, I feel like they could have threaded that needle anyway. You could have had an angry former Soviet coach, someone who refused to acknowledge the new reality, the new balance between the major powers, and made him the coach of any other team. He could have just been an angry, violent former Soviet. And then you could have had the previous issues without actually offending current Russian balance. I feel like this is a huge production loss.
I think Tim Curry would be amazing. Would have been great. But
he could narrate the birth of my children.
Yeah,
Don't exist.
I agree. He's just an incredible human. Though, as I was watching this movie, my actor brain was going off, and I'm just like, this casting of Stenson is incredible.
Okay. I mean, he was the character does have the range of granite, which is perfect.
There really isn't a single likable quality about this man.
Mm-hmm.
False. Solid hair. I'm not saying great. It's not
redeemable.
Flowing, luxurious, nothing like that. Nothing like his Iceland players, who, my God, the mains.
The locks, right?
Such locks.
I tried today.
We respect
talk
it.
later.
We respect your Bash Brothers homage with
the Bash Brothers. I'm ready to go.
Yep.
We will insert. We will rock you.
We can't afford the rights to that. Sorry.
Huh. Wolf the Dennis Sanson went on to be in Man in the High Castle. That seems
appropriate.
Yeah, appropriate and a little close.
He knows his lane.
I mean, good for him. Understand how you can play.
We're just like gushing over these actors right now, and in the very niche market of fans of Curry and Mighty Ducks, like,
I doubt that's a niche market.
I would be hard pressed to find someone who is not a Tim Curry fan.
Really?
I would love. Please mention in the comments what percentage of you, how many of you are lovers of both Mighty Ducks and Clue and or Muppet Treasure Island
or Home Alone 2.
Thank you.
He played in everything. He played in everything.
Tim Curry was an omnipresent man in the 90s. Except
this movie. He played in everything except this movie. Well, on our next podcast, we'll just devote it to Tim Curry.
I love this plan. But yes, in terms of why Iceland team was allowed to do anything they wanted, my general assumption, having watched the rest of the movie, is that the refs didn't know hockey either. Because the sheer number of things that take place from every team, from the United States team, from the Trinidad and Tobago team, which props for making the cut. Like, that's, for an island that has not seen ice maybe ever, props. That's hard. But yeah, I must assume that the refs also did not know hockey, so just kind of were just like, this seems like sport.
Okay, so I want to jump into this other fact that, assuming that we just accept that Hans had a silent partner in the hockey shop in his brother Jan, and that Hans had to go back to Austria to visit his mother, which is a totally legitimate reason, and not because he secretly killed Coach Riley after the last movie. Assuming all of that is just like taken for granted, all right? Why do we think that Hans and Jan wielded so much power in the hockey world that they are able to convince what is essentially the biggest hockey apparel company to get behind this Pee-wee hockey / former minor league hockey player?
I have a mathematical reason. It's a theory, but I'm calling it fact. So the great majority of the hockey players from the state of Minnesota do come from the Twin Cities region extended. Part of that is just the concentration of the state. Part of that is, I imagine, just how easy it is to be seen. That it's a state that is fairly concentrated.
It's like Indiana basketball. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
If you're more remote, it's just infinitely harder for people to know how good you are because you just aren't being seen. That said, Minnesota produces 17.4% of all American players in the NHL. They produce twice as many, on average, NHL players as New York or Massachusetts, which is the third and fourth highest contributors. Michigan produces, on average, around 35. Any given year, you look at how many players from the NHL are from Michigan, and the answer is about 35. From Minnesota, it's around 44. So they literally are the primary salespeople for the highest concentration of NHL trajectory players in the country. That's how they're able to have such power. They may just seem like, small casual people selling gear to a local community, but they honestly seem to have a true chokehold on the NHL potential of America's biggest hotbed.
So
also, they clearly have enough local clout to kill Coach Riley, and it'd be fine.
Yeah, they could do that. I just feel like it isn't that crazy that could happen once you break it down, Andrew.
Now, it is crazy that the rest of the Ducks would be on that team. Now, I mean, I'll put it out there. A lot of the Goodwill Games does seem to be about branding, and anyone who's watched the Olympics knows that though there are events that are just fun to watch, the events that you don't know that much about, or the average person doesn't know that much about, what gets you into them is the story behind the players that you're seeing compete. When Michael Phelps, we heard his history. When Dora Torres came back, there was so much history of like who this person is, what it took to reach this point. When you create these narratives around individuals, whether they win or lose, we care about them. We tune in. So to bring Coach Bombay and his Ducks along creates a heck of a narrative. It does. It shows, hey, this is America where literally anyone can rise to the highest level. Of course, that doesn't explain why they kept Goldberg in goal when he's bad.
You bring up a really good point that the Ducks being brought in was definitely a marketing tactic that seems to have worked. But some of the Ducks did not come along.
Honestly, a little ruthless. Charlie went from Spazway to hitting that goal and becoming somehow team captain to then being deputized to just cull the fat from the herd. Just like, Charlie, go get the Ducks. I'm just not going to get some of them. I'm going to get the ones I think are good.
We do miss those other players, though, Andrew.
We do.
Oh, yeah. Tammy, Tommy, Dave, Peter.
Like Tommy. Oh.
Carp.
Andrew Carp.
Don't you mean Dave Carp?
Carp. David Carp. David Carp. Apologies to David Carp.
This brings up the question, Mark, would you have brought along any of the other players in place of some of the players that we got? I'm
going to hard pass that and say no.
Absolutely.
I will not.
They were bad.
They really didn't do anything. They barely saw the ice. Like, they were all bench warmers in an ice cold hockey rink. Let's just put that.
Let's get into the new Ducks. The new Ducks were obviously brought in specifically for their character quirks more than anything else so that they could forward the story.
Wait. Are you saying that a hockey puck handler from Texas who can't really shoot that well or skate that well shouldn't be on the U.S. national team?
Again, it's about the key is not team. The key is U.S. So that's why we have someone from Maine, we have someone from Miami, we have someone from Texas, we have someone from Chicago. And then eventually we have someone from Los Angeles. That's cities. Texas is not a city. I don't actually know what city he was from. Was he from Austin?
You are right.
He seemed way too cowboy to be Austin. Even in the 90s when Austin wasn't as tech hub as it is now, Austin was still Austin. It was keep it weird Austin, not cattle rustling country Austin.
Stephen Brill, by his own admission, only knew so much about hockey. He even said in interviews that he was not very good at hockey. He just liked it.
That's really funny. I love the idea that the writer of arguably the 3 most well-known American movies about hockey doesn't know anything about hockey.
This is one of the reasons why, though, it works, because it is grounded in the characters. You know, we are Charlie, you know, or we are Julia the cat.
We are all Julia the cat, I feel.
Yes.
I was a big fan of Aaron Lohr. If you couldn't tell, Dean Portman. Are you shocked by that at all?
Based on your look right now, absolutely.
Oh, this? By what do you mean? No, but seriously, those 2 guys brought so much energy to the movie, and it was just like fun to have some goofballs who just like hit people hard. Like,
It was very old school Philly. That it was very much a callback to the older, more brutal days of hockey. The general idea of just like, yeah, one of them could shoot. Did Portman ever touch a puck?
No.
I don't remember him ever touching a puck. His exclusive purpose was to hit people really hard.
yes.
And though I personally don't love that morally, it was really fun to watch.
The choreographed hits were incredible.
Agreed.
Like the airtime involved was just as a child, as a 10-year-old, as an 8-year-old, whatever, like even as a 30-year-old, like it's fun to see people fall down on the ice. It really is.
Yep. And delightful to watch them train Kenny Wu, the figure skater, to become a fellow Bash brother. Though, perhaps I overstate. They encouraged the behavior. It was Russ and his gang in LA that trained him how to be tough.
Stick, gloves, shirt. Don't you ever forget it.
It's Knuckle Puck time!
I would like to go into a new segment, and by new segment, I mean a segment we didn't do last week. And I want to call it the penalty box.
Okay.
And this is where we can air our grievances, and we can point out the things that we saw in the movie where it was like, that's suspect. That's not sure how well that holds up. So, Mark, do you have any grievances to air while you're sitting in the penalty box?
I'm gonna pass this to David. Actually,
I got a lot of grievances.
he's got a lot of grievances right now, and he's ready to go.
I like to complain about things. It's part of my nature. I'm German and Irish of descent. My people get drunk and we yell about things. It's what we do. Also, sometimes we try and move places. It doesn't always go well. Anyway, that got dark.
No, that's actually very appropriate, because do you know who else likes to drink and yell at things?
Who?
Hockey fans.
That's okay, fair. Anywho, first
And
issue.
we're back.
And we're back. First thing, I love the knuckle puck. Incredibly cool idea, incredibly cool shot. It never moves side to side. It's just up and down. So unlike in baseball, where you're trying to hit a knuckleball and you're stuck in one position, any decent goalie just slides to that side. They just stand totally still, and their body, it will hit somewhere on their body. Somewhere. It's only going up and down. They have full range of movement. So, issue 1. Issue 2, and I brought this up last time. Why doesn't Fulton take every shot? The man literally shoots things like a shotgun. If you can murder someone with a hockey puck, with the amount of force you put behind it, why? Why is anyone else ever shooting ever? Ever. It's like having a tank and sending in the infantry. It's just dumb. Just shoot the tank. Okay. 3. Okay, Mendoza from Miami. Really fast, cool, awesome that he can do things. What is Bombay's obsession with using soda cans? Always, all the time. First movie, second movie, it's always stacked soda cans to try and encourage people to do things. 1, where are you getting all these soda cans? Not good for society. Not good for anything. Soda. Two.
Point of order. I don't have this on any
I'm in the
authority.
middle of my air.
I don't have this on any authority, but soda cans are a very easy way to work in product placement. Just saying.
It's an excellent point. Do you remember any product on any of those soda cans?
I believe I did see something that moderately resembled Seagram's ginger ale, but I couldn't actually see the logo.
Honestly, I might have seen that too, and I might have seen a Sprite. Okay?
I'm going to go with green Sprite
Yep. Okay.
as
All
well
right.
for 200.
Your point is taken. I just remember watching that and thinking, oh, cool visual. Someone just tried to stop, and they slid through a giant wall of soda cans.
But
It would take so long to stack those cans. Just put up anything, a sheet, one of those traffic cones from the street, literally anything.
not just that. I'm going to piggyback off of this grievance, if I may.
Yes.
How do you get to the level that you are at and not be able to stop? Is my question.
Agreed.
That's a pretty big can't do.
I mean, the fact that every person on this team, except apparently Julia the Cat Gaffney, who for some reason we just never use, every person on this team has some major fundamental flaw with their talent. And yet somehow it's surprising that Iceland is favored. If you have a team of accomplished athletes on one side and a bunch of ragtag sure, they can do great things, but there's none of them are complete. They're all good at something.
But they're a team, and I think that's what we drive. That's what drives this whole movie, and we've actually come to see in professional sports and college sports that a lot of the times the better team will prevail.
No question. I'll agree with you on that. And they became such a team that an NHL team was born from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could, as they say in Angels in the Outfield, hey, it could happen.
So, and this is where my nerdiness really kicks in hearing this, because...
Wait, this is where it kicks in?
Yes, correct.
Now.
I love you.
Today, the hockey team in question, which was originally known as the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, is now strictly known as the Anaheim Ducks because Disney sold their stock in the company, is now owned privately by another company. They then, in the process, also sold the trademark to Mighty Ducks to this new private owner. I want to know how much they had to pay to get the trademark back in order to do this Disney Plus series.
In general, because I am an IP nerd, I have seriously considered going to law school many times just to study IP law. This has the potential to be one of my favorite case lines, including my favorite most recent one, that Netflix registered the term Space Force before the government did. Yep. For the US government to have a Space Force, they have to pay Netflix in perpetuity for the licensing rights. That is real. I love this stuff. So thank you, Andrew, for bringing this up, because that is a magnificent absurdity that the rights just got sold and then had to be bought back even though they weren't being used. That is wonderful in so many ways.
Didn't that go on with the Dallas Cowboys a couple years back too?
I believe it was a guy bought the website that for somehow the Dallas Cowboys website for 4
expired,
minutes.
Right?
Expired.
Yeah,
Fully expired, and a guy bought it, and Jerry Jones had to pay the guy $250,000.
Okay, was that real, or because the only time I actually saw that was a plot line on The League.
I definitely think it was real.
Yeah. November 9th, 2010, DallasCowboys.com actually expired. Yeah, that's a real thing. The world is magical.
That's also a magical episode of The League, by the way. You should absolutely go and seek out that episode. I think it's the season 5 premiere. Highly recommend.
I assume it's Taco who buys the website.
100%.
Of course it is.
And Nick Kroll, if you are listening, which of course you are, hi. You're talented. Love your work.
Is Gordon Bombay a bad lawyer, or is he the worst lawyer ever? Because the first thing you learn in law school is never sign a contract without reading it. And the moment that Don sits Gordon down in a fancy limo and says, here's how much money we're going to pay you, he ignores this, what appeared to be minimum 15-page endorsement contract and just signs it, when in all reality, that contract could say that he is required to walk around with no shoes on, and at least once a week, it has to be on glass.
It must have been a
very
big
dark
number.
angle, Andrew. Yeah.
It must have been a real big number.
I mean, the level to which they really hype the coach of the Goodwill Games of a team that is entirely a branding story. I mean, cool. But I mean, there's a point in this movie where Coach Bombay is talking with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar about a sports loafer called the Air Bombay for children.
For kids who want to coach.
Yeah. So I agree with Mark. That must have been a really big number. And to go back to D1, he was never a very good lawyer, and he didn't seem to ever have a whole lot of morals. I mean, like, money seemed to drive a lot of things for him. The part of what I like about this movie, it's the reversion of old Bombay, and then the return of the good man. I mean, come on. He comes out like Pat Riley at one point with his hair fully slicked back. Like he.
Oh, yes. Captain Blood.
Yeah.
Did you know that Pat Riley actually was the inspiration for The Dentist?
Really?
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah, I mean that works. But
It looks just like the man.
Okay, so I want to dig into something that's been alluded to, which is the complete and utter mishandling of the goalie situation on this team. Mark, how do you justify having Goldberg be goalie number 1 over Julie the Cat?
I'm just gonna go by seniority. He knows the offense. He's been playing with this team for a while, and he knows the team. He knows tendencies. That's all I got, and I'm trying to justify this real hard.
I'm
But
going
that
sexism.
would be-
I'm just throwing that out there. Like, there's Julie and there's Connie. Those are the only women on the team. Do we ever see any indication of a women's locker room? Ever?
No.
Whoa. No, there's
No.
one locker room and everyone interacts in that locker room. This is a team that tries to treat women exactly as equals in the sense that we often did in the 90s of just going, cool, we're going to provide one set of things and whatever happens to you, that's just what happens to you, which sucks. Because what happens is sexism and discomfort. That's what happens.
I missed that part of the movie. I missed that whole.
I dig too deeply into things.
But you're not wrong.
Great. Julie is an amazing goalie, as is shown by
She's
the.
incredible, and she should be the starter.
She should. If she was the starter, no one would have ever scored on them ever. Ever. She literally comes in and stops in the most pivotal moment possible the best player in the entire competition. Just completely cold, just handles it. Like, I'm sorry, if you can roll in and do that, why aren't you always the goalie? No one will ever score. Bombay could have continued being a Pat Riley slicked hair douche, and they still would have won everything, because no matter how badly the rest of the team played, she would not have let anyone score. If you can UVA defense their way through, it's like, oh yeah, like no one else can score, so I guess we don't have to be very good at offense. Like, okay, good, you just win things. Be better. Bombay's a terrible coach.
I think you actually, David, just pointed out the truth there. The abdication of being a coach and recognizing that you have to elevate the correct talent was Bombay's major issue during the first 2/3 of the movie, where he's turning into Captain Blood. having Goldberg, the less qualified goalie, being in the goal the entire time shows that he's not really paying attention. He's seeing this hockey thing as a means to an end. By the time that we get to the end of the movie, putting Julia the Cat in is his final redemption. Or at least that's what they're trying to make it be. We don't get true redemption until D3 when... Do I need to put a spoiler alert on it? I'm going to put a spoiler alert on it just in case Julia the Cat becomes the number one goalie over Goldberg.
Which is just reasonable. Sorry. As another line of Bombay being a truly terrible coach. And Emilio, I am a fan of your career. You're a fun actor. But unless these refs, as we alluded to earlier, truly have no concept of the rules of hockey, you being that late for that game that they had to improvise and just declare their tutor the temporary coach, I'm sorry, in any professional sport, there is a registered list. You can't just point to someone in the audience and be like, that's our coach. That counts, right? And if the refs had any concept of the rules of hockey, which fortunately they did not, hence why you were allowed to literally just clothesline people and throw them through things, whatever. But if they had actually been refs, then you being late would have ended your team's chance at a championship. And there is no indication of what you were doing. Were you just scouring Los Angeles for a duck whistle? I imagine they're hard to find. I've lived in LA.
I'm sorry, David. David, I gotta stop you. That is probably one of the funniest things you've ever said.
Thank you. I'm sorry. The man wanted a symbol, and he showed up late for a game that could have gotten his whole team disqualified from the competition. Bombay, if you're gonna lean hard into symbolism, be prepared. You're not gonna find a duck call in Los Angeles. You're not. And if you show up late and your team, without Charlie's rapid improvisation and the fact that the refs don't actually understand hockey, you cost your team everything in the attempt to symbolically draw them all together when half the team doesn't know what the fuck you're doing.
I would love someone to create the spin-off bit of Gordon Bombay just going all over LA looking for a duck collar.
That would be a great college humor bit. He's like, I've got 4 hours till the game. I can find a duck call.
Well, gentlemen, our time together talking about D2 is beginning to come to an end. So I'd like to go into our final thoughts. David, I'll start with you. Please share any final musings that you might have that you haven't been able to get out. And also tell us whether you think moving from one All That cast member in the Mighty Ducks to a different All That cast member in D2 The Mighty Ducks was an upgrade or a downgrade?
Well, first, before I get into anything else, Kenan Thompson is always an upgrade. The man is a delight. Anyone who disagrees with me, I will fight you.
He's not wrong.
Anchoring SNL for over a decade. Good for you, man.
Yeah. It's incredible, is it? It's incredible. What a career. What a career. And he seems like a genuine man.
Yeah, he does. He seems like a great guy. But anywho, additional issues or whatnot, or just topics I want to talk about. We spoke a lot in our first podcast, talking about the first movie, about the class distinction that was set up. One of my favorite elements of this movie, and I alluded to this, I believe, in our previous recording, is the sequence when Russ, played by Kenan Thompson, basically draws the Team USA into a street hockey game against his brother and all of their general friends in downtown Los Angeles. And that is kind of the coming together of the team, them realizing and understanding what it is to be American, because this country is multicultural. It is a wide range of different economic possibilities. It is a wide variety of perspectives and capabilities united together. Also, it's freaking tough, which was the main rule of that game. It's like there's no ref. Honestly, there's no ref in their real games either. But yeah, like they just beat the snot out of each other. And they played until it was done. And I love that about this movie. I do. Also, as a closing note, in honor of Mark, I brought a sandwich.
Love it.
It's a really big sandwich. My jaw doesn't go that far. I'm not a snake.
Mark, as David devours his sandwich, please give us your final thoughts and tell us whether you think in one corner we have Benny the Jet Rodriguez and Kenny De Nunez from The Sandlot, and in the other corner we have Luis Mendoza and Jesse Hall. Who wins that fight?
Man, two really fast dudes.
I give it Danny
Jesse.
Man as cake eater.
I mean, so I gotta give it to Jesse and Mendoza. I got to. I mean, I think those two wouldn't give up because like they haven't given up on any of these teams, and I'm not saying that Benny would give up because he's a star. He leaped over the fence and got that Babe Ruth ball, but I'm giving it to Jesse.
That is the correct answer because we've seen how they fight in The Sandlot, and we've seen how they fight in D2, and their fighting skills in D2 are vastly superior.
Vastly superior, yeah.
Also,
I agree.
In D2, they have knives on their feet.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
They do. A good amount of
knives.
fight.
They do have.
I'm sorry, like, if you're picking a fight, like, well, pause. Does the other side have baseball bats? How are they coming into this fight? Are they just rolling in like kids? Or are they rolling in post-game? Because one side has knives on their feet and hockey pads. The other side has a baseball bat.
Is Benny coming in holding Hercules? Like if Jake can have a snake in a bag, can Benny the Jet Rodriguez come in with a giant dog named Hercules? I think so.
We've just gone WWE with this? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
I am. Yeah. That's where I went right away. Tag team matchup.
Honestly, I would watch that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how has Fox not done this yet? I mean, for years, I feel like we watched all those ridiculous shows of just like Man versus Beast. It's 40 dolphins versus a tractor. Like, it was all these amazing, ridiculous things. How do they never have Fist Fight? The Mighty Ducks versus The Sandlot.
They did. It was called Celebrity Deathmatch, and it was on MTV.
Fox did not have that, though.
That is
Fox
true.
always did it with real people and real dolphins.
Though, changing it up a little bit, I did learn something incredible from this rewatch of D2.
Tell me more.
I finally figured out why growing up, no one could do the knuckle puck. At least me.
Okay.
And when it hit me why I couldn't do it, it made perfect sense. And I justified everything. Russ is left-handed. And I'm not.
That's definitely the reason.
I couldn't do a knuckle puck.
Before we get too deep into that, I think that's the perfect place to end today's conversation. Thank you so much for sticking with us on this journey. Next week, we'll be obviously diving into D3, The Mighty Ducks, which will be our last pit stop before we actually get started with Mighty Ducks Game Changers on Disney+. We want to take a moment and apologize. We originally planned on having an interview with Keenan Thompson, but we ran out of time. So, Keenan, we're sorry. We're going to try to get you on next week.
We'll get it next week, man. We'll make it work next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, with that in mind, this has been Knuckle Puck time.
Also, Dave Karp, you owe me $10. You know why.
And with that in mind, this has been Knuckle Puck time. I have been Andrew.
I remain David.
And I'm still not Nick Kroll, but I'm Mark Winsky.
We'll quack you later.
Go Ducks!
We'll quack you later.
Quack!